Okay, welcome back, Math 90. This is section 4.1, and it might be review for you. We're going to be graphing on the coordinate plane. And in D2L, under this section, I have a handout for you, and it says that it's graph paper, so you can print out as many pieces as you want, and I'm going to be using this as well when I go over this lesson. So this is a PDF file, and it's under graph paper, under section, under content, section 4.1. So, like I said, this might be a review for you. Remember, when we graph on the coordinate plane, we're going to be graphing points or ordered pairs. And remember, it looks like something like this. This is an example of a point or an ordered pair. And remember, your first number in the parentheses, right? The point needs to be in parentheses. So the 3 is called my x coordinate, and my 2 is called my y coordinate, and that helps us graph it. It must be in this order. It's always x, then y. And like I said before, it's got to be in parentheses. So this is always the x coordinate, this is always the y coordinate. And together they make a point. They make the point 3, 2. So let me go to my graph, and let's kind of talk about the graph a little bit. So remember, when we're looking at the coordinate plane, we've got a line going across, or east and west. Do we remember what we call that? Well, going across this line is called the x-axis. And again, it might be a review for you. Going up and down this line, and you know what? These should go on forever. It doesn't show, but they should go on forever. This doesn't stop at 10, it goes on and on forever. Each of these parts go on forever, each of these pieces of the line. So getting back to going up and down or going north and south, we know that this is called the y-axis. So that helps us graph, because our point has an x part and a y part. So that definitely helps us graph the points. And this graph is numbered going by ones. Does it always have to go by ones? No. It can go by 2s, it can go by 5s, but be consistent when you're labeling each of these tick marks. If you're going to go by 1s, make sure you go by 1s. Don't go by 1s and then all of a sudden go by 5s. And if you're going by 2s over here, make sure you go by 2s on the other side of the x-axis. If you go by 1s on the upper part of the y-axis, make sure you go by 1s on the lower part. And what else is important? Oh, the plane, or the coordinate plane, is broken up into 4 pieces called quadrants. And do we remember the name of each of these quadrants? So if you remember from your graphing days, this is quadrant 1. So it starts, quadrant 1 starts upper right, and it kind of comes around and makes a C. So this is quadrant 2. Going below quadrant 2, I've got quadrant 3. And then last, I've got quadrant 4. Now you can use regular numbers, you know, like I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can use Roman numerals. To label the quadrants, and you might see that on page 258 where they're talking and they're labeling the quadrants. And like I said, this is on the top of page 258 if you want to look at that. Does anybody remember what we call the middle, the exact middle where the y-axis meets the x-axis? Let's talk about that. So that where the x-axis meets the y-axis is called the origin. We could also call it the point 0, 0. So right here in the middle is called the origin, or the point 0, 0. And it's kind of like our home base, or our starting point. We always want to start at the origin whenever we graph a point. That's our home. That's where we always start. So right here. So we've got our quadrants, we've got our axes. There's another example on page 258, and this middle is the origin. And let's graph the point from when I first started explaining the section, it was the point 3, 2. So let's just graph 3, 2. Graph the point 3, 2. Okay, so remember, this is x, the 3 is x, and the 2 is y. So, I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to start at home base. I'm going to start here, and x tells me, since it's the point 3, 2, I'm going to go over 3 spots. It's a positive 3, so I'm going to go over 3 spots on the x-axis. And for the y, I'm going up 2. 1, 2. And I'm going to label this the point 3, 2. So I went over 3, and I went up 2. We always have to do the x part going over to the right or left, depending on whether it's positive or negative, and then secondly, we're going to go up or down depending on whether it's positive or negative. So this is my first point, 3, 2 in quadrant 1. Okay, let me graph one more point. Where would, or how would we graph the point -4, -5? Okay, so I want to graph -4, -5. So again, I'm starting here, where I'm always going to start at the origin, or 0, 0. And -4 is the first part, so I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, -4, because it's negative, so I'm going over to the left. And because the second piece is -5, I'm going to go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to label it. Here's my point, -4, 5, and it's located in quadrant 3. So we're going to do some more graphing when I come back in part 2 of section 4.1.